Hello, everybody. Welcome to your lovely Thursday afternoon. I was like, where are we in the week for the moment? Thursday afternoon, St. Bartholomew's project activity. So we've had a really interesting week looking at medieval times through to more modern times and into the Victorian era. So thank you very much for joining me today. Today's about kind of creative responses to the inspiration of the hospital. So I thought first of all I'd just give you some ideas or things that you might be able to do when you're thinking about your creativity. Now, the reason that this is really important to me is because I really believe that creativity and art activities is really important for well-being. And so my connection between arts and health is twofold. I believe that they are collaborative and they go hand in hand. And I feel like creativity is something that we should be doing every day and includes everything from us getting dressed in the morning and what clothes we put on through to maybe making something. But when I say making something, I feel that that could even be a really nice meal. And what's been interesting listening to the stories, which I'll talk about more later in the week, is that food was really at the heart of St. Bartholomew's Hospital. Everything was made in house, it was fresh, and people really sought after having good food while they were struggling with their health. Now, with the pandemic in mind, we've obviously been eating quite a bit of food for our own comfort. But the thing is it really does show you how important food can be. And although we might sometimes have a complicated relationship with food, it shows that it really is connected so much to our well-being. We can't survive without food. And it also creativity is also really to do with our heart and soul and who we are as a person, and kind of, I guess, says who we are as an individual, and we should use that within our expression. So for me, the connection between medicine and health provides just so much inspiration for arts and creativity, and that was one of the reasons that I had the recipe the other day, because I feel that's another creative response to looking at the history of medicine. St. Bartholomew's provides so much because it also provides this amazing medieval history. So if we look at some of the incredible, if we look at medieval history and the beautiful things that were, being created, this is a classic type of medieval artwork that was put into these books. And thinking back on our activity about we were looking at medicine and meals on Tuesday. I had to think for a moment again. We kind of looked at the different concoctions they were making for things like ulcerations and the leprosy that people would have that were coming to the hospital in the Middle Ages. And this is very much kind of reflected in these wonderful manuscripts that you see here, because if you look around the edge, there's lots of plants and herbs, and if you think at the time this was all they had to access. The major thing to remember in medicine is how much antibiotics changed everything. Like leprosy was something that, through antibiotics could be treated if there were skin infections, the same for so many other diseases. And before that, there was only ointments that could be made or concoctions which could be drunk. And that was all that could be used for medicine. And we have kind of lost that a bit, or often these substances will be covered in like a different name. Aspirin is of a natural origin. I believe that's willow bark, if I remember rightly. I'm trying to remember, my memory is terrible. But a lot of the medicines we do use have like these natural plant origins, including things like obviously codeine and coming from opium. So so it's really interesting that going back in time, obviously plants were medicine, which is again why I love working with plants and growing my own food and encouraging other people to do the same. So it makes sense that in these medieval manuscripts you would also see this kind of coming up, that they were really seeing how important and precious plants were. So often these manuscripts are just decorated with plants and trees, and I just think they're so beautiful. So there's so much inspiration there, and I'd love to see some artwork from the community in Medway, where people take this interpretation around the use of plants as medicine, and just the kind of the medieval styles, and also just, I guess, anatomy and the way that anatomy used to be drawn. I think it's just so interesting. There's so much detail in and how things were for draw. It's a really, really interesting period of art, I think, and very kind of almost honest in the way that it represented the human form, which I quite like. And yeah, but this beauty around plants and their how important they felt it, you know, plants were in their everyday life, in curing of ailments and care, really comes over in medieval manuscripts. And so I think that's really something to kind of reflect on from a creative point of view. Also, obviously, the hospital itself. So if I load up, I've got to find the right picture. What's quite interesting, we'll speak about this later in the week, but the hospital, where it's being redeveloped, they're using this wonderful flower design. And it's interesting that it kind of like relates back to what I was just saying about plants and medieval designs. But if you look out for our video on is it Friday or Saturday, over towards the weekend, we will be looking at the redevelopment of the site, and they have very much taken into account these floral designs that are on this staircase, and it's just absolutely beautiful. You might need to kind of look a bit closer. Let's see if I can zoom in here. So if you see here, there's this wonderful, beautiful flower designs in the woodwork. It's carved into the banister. Absolutely beautiful. And I presume that this is creating a shadow on the wall, or I need to ask my friend Kim, who's kindly given me this photo, or that is a window that is like creating that shadow onto the wall. Absolutely stunning. I can't wait to see this staircase in real life, because I don't remember visiting any older part of the hospital when I did go in there. So again, there's this connection between like this natural organic feel and medicine, and it's really interesting that it was reflected in the hospital. Of course, as well, the hospital would have had an apothecary. So these prints and the way that pharmaceuticals were advertised are so interesting. I mean, going back to like aspirin and different kind of cocodamol and codeine and things like that. I mean, that was it, you know, everyday use in opiates were being used in all sorts of things they shouldn't be, let's face it. I thought we'd use the example of some nice lavender sorts here, because again, plants, lavender, nice and soothing, and lavender salts certainly are very good, because they're, or salts anyway, are full of magnesium. If you bathe in them, they will help with your aches and pains and relieve your muscles. It says here these salts are the most agreeable deodorant though that exists, or deodorizer that exists. So for these, they will refresh the air. So I believe these are more like a smelling salt, which I have not smelled smelling salts in, so I don't know if you can still get them, but I remember you could still buy like a little glass bottle that was very Victoriana when I was like a teenager, so not really like too long ago, wink wink. And you know this that they would just, it core, yeah, it wakes you up. The idea is that, you know, smelling salts would wake you up if you were having a little bit of a turn, or if you were starting to feel a bit nauseous, you would, you know, smell smelling salts, and it'd just be this hit of I don't even know how to describe it. Burns the nose, that's the best way to describe it. It burns the nose and it wakes you up. But that beautiful kind of Victorian apothecary designs on bottles is just so inspiring. So there's lots you can take from that, and we're going to be sharing a video later on the week which you quickly kind of see the old bottles being dispensed in St Bartholomew's Hospital. So yeah, that'd be really interesting. You obviously have the staff themselves as well, the nurses and the uniforms they were wearing, and the wonderful old ambulances as well, which were just the most great little vintage black kind of cart vans even, that were obviously rescuing people across Medway, mainly around accidents that were happening at the dockyard, for instance. Not too far a run, is it really, to the dockyard either from St Bartholomew's, so they would have been there pretty quickly. So yeah, so there'll be more inspiration through the week, but I'd love people to respond to that. And also, coming into talking about responses, I'd be really interested to see if people feel like they want to respond in terms of creative writing. For instance, there might be stories that you've heard through this week and you would like to make up one. You might want to kind of create a myth of St Bartholomew's Hospital. Maybe yesterday our video about the Grey Lady inspired you and you'd like to write about the Grey Lady, or maybe Gundulph visiting Gundulph Ward. There's so much kind of inspiration there about maybe the ghosts of St Bartholomew's. Also, what else do I have to? Oh yes, okay, so there's also an incredible project which is the Medway Intra Poetry Walk. They're one of our kind of sister projects, I'd like to call it, alongside this. So another one of the micro commissions is the Medway Intra Poetry Walk, headed up by Ali. So the Medway Intra Poetry Walk is an interactive poetry and spoken word trail made up of works from Medway residents, local writers, and anyone with a connection to the Medway towns. Medway-born writer Ali Sinyard is inviting members of the public to submit poetry and spoken word pieces based on their experiences, memories, and relationships to the old High Street Intra. In case you didn't know, the Intra area is between Star Hill in Rochester and Sunpier in Chatham. So there's lots along there. Now, bearing in mind that the chapel for St Bartholomew's was originally along Intra area, this is where maybe there's some inspiration for the medieval side of St Bartholomew's, but also thinking about and the chapel that still exists there as well today. There's quite a lot there to think about, but also the waterworks or the mortuary, the big old castle building that's at the back of the hospital, that might also give you some inspiration, some kind of it's kind of quite gothic, isn't it? It was originally linked with the brewery which was over the road, which we'll touch on later on in the week, but that's how it got this name, the waterworks. But that castle, that kind of, it's a folly, like that is just like, and then it was a mortuary only in Medway would that happen. So interesting. So there's quite a few different things there that might kind of inspire you, but going back to Ali's call out, she would like you to, there's Ali, she would like you to submit any poems or stories that are connected to that area and that old high street area. And her idea is that she's going to then create some QR codes, which then as people walking past, they can scan and then they can read your work. Obviously that would be done when it is safe to do so, and to encourage people to go out when it is safe. But in the meantime, you have until the 28th of March, which is a nice big open window for you to submit your stories and poems and be creative. And that, there's so much inspiration along there. And if you want to find out more about the Heritage Action Zone, I really recommend Googling it and seeing about what's going to go on there, and how the goal is essentially to make sure that the general public notice that area more. So it'd be really interesting to see how that happens over the next few years, and that's through the High Street High streets, heritage action zones. Huzzahs! Huzzahs! So without further ado, for those of you that have joined me for a nice activity, I'm going to show you how to make an interesting kind of gothic medicine bottle or jar. But it says oil of fish. So I'm going to show you how to do this. This is just a little jam jar. I have decided that I'm going up a level. I'm stepping up, and I'm going to actually use an old kind of vitamins bottle, which has still got vitamins in it, and I'm going to make this look like it was at St. Bart's many years ago. So what you're going to do first of all is you're going to take a Sharpie, I recommend anyway, and you're going to write on it what is in your jar. Now this isn't that big, so I definitely say think about writing shorter words for smaller bottles. And the other thing is please don't relabel your medicines like your actual tablets. This is strictly for just vitamins, okay? I don't want anyone getting the tablets mixed up. Even better if you don't store vitamins or tablets in it and you store knickknacks, okay? And if they're knickknack crisps, even better, because knickknack crisps are amazing. But anyway, I'm going to write on here zinc, because that is lovely and short, and that's going to be really easy for me to do. So I've put that on there, and then I've pre-prepared my hot glue gun, thankfully, and let's make sure that hopefully the cable's long enough. Yep. So I've pre-prepared my mini hot glue gun, which is just the right temperature for me to probably burn myself on, but then we'll see. It's probably going to drip everywhere, so I need to move my... Right, okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the hot glue gun onto the bottle, because if you do it too far away, it'll become really blobby. And to be honest, that is a little bit of what happened on that jar. So I'm going to be a bit closer to it on this instance, and you're just going to go over what you wrote. Come on, glue, where are you? Come on, glue, where are you? Oh yeah, I've got a big blob already. Should have done it on the paper first. Okay, so this is just adding some texture basically. There we go. I'm going to tidy that up quickly because that is a really big blob of glue. That is a really big blob of glue. What's good though with the hot glue is that it only takes like a kind of a pair of scissors or the end of a knife, and you can kind of flatten it and move it around a bit. So I quite like that. It's very forgiving. Okay. Feel like I maybe put what is also good is it doesn't matter if you stick exactly to where you've written, because it's just to have on the background, because you're going to paint over it, so it means that you don't have to stick to exactly where you drew. You'll find that because the glue is quite blobby, that you might need to like move from your original plan of where you wanted your letters to go. Okay, right, I'm done. So I'm just going to let that set. The joy of hot glue is that obviously that is pretty much already dry, so that's amazing. Right, put that to one side, and then I've got some lovely chalkboard paint that's black, so I feel very lucky and privileged. We bought this many years ago with the idea of making a blackboard on a door, and it never happened. So I have a big jar. What for this project is a very big jar, so I'm just going to give that a shake. I tried a little tester pot of emulsion earlier. It was a Dulux baby blue color, and it worked very nicely. Actually, it worked very well. It's not waterproof, but for ornamental purposes looked really good. And to be honest, on glass, the more it kind of roughs up and kind of peels, it looks even better. So I'm all for it. Anything that starts to look a bit aged is great. Okay, so I'm going to take the lid off of the bottle because I'm going to try and cover this. So you really don't need to be delicate about it. Just go for it. And you know, that's what's so great, is again, it's just quite forgiving. I'm not gonna do the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna do the bottom, which means I've got to take the actual vitamins out, which so obviously you can kind of put your finger in it and then paint the bottom as well, all at the same time. Oh, it's this craft is just so easy. I love it. And this would be really good for Halloween as well if you're doing props. Highly recommend. But you could obviously do other colors. You could also paint like your old bottles and jars and pill, like vitamin bottles, or old pill bottles, as long as you don't put pills in them. That's all I'm saying. Like, oh, there was another tablet in there. Yeah, please don't mix up your medication. I don't know if my insurance covers that. Yeah, and the more that, like I say, the more it gets roughed up, the better. Almost there. See, it doesn't take too long at all. And this is a great thing with like a chalk paint, is that it just completely goes over it. Right. So what you can then do is, there's another tablet in there and it's just falling onto my fingers. What you can then do is, you should be able to see that. I feel like I need a little bit more now, actually. That's it. What you can then do, oh, that's what I was going to say, because the other thing is you could also stick like old-fashioned labels on it, or make up old-fashioned labels to go on the bottles or jars, and then that can be pretty cool. So then they're painted and they kind of look all aged, and then you've put your own labels on them. That can look really good. So yeah, so you can sit that like that upside down, not on my hand. I'm not just going to sit here even for like an hour waiting for that to dry. I'm gonna put that over there and try not to knock it over, and I need to find something to kind of brush that paint off, and then I'll imagine that I've now also done the lid. Oh, I'll do the lid as well. I'll just chat to you while I'm doing that. Why not, eh? It's literally going to take seconds. I love these when they're like the caps like this. And another thing you can do is you can use old like water bottles, and if you cut off the like the neck of the bottle where the kind of the corkscrew is for the cap, you kind of cut it off just underneath that, and there's a rim, and then if you cut down just to that point, oh, that looks proper medical. That looks really good. And then if you can find a cork that will fit in the lid, oh, that's a really good one. Because then, so keep hold of your old corks, or if your kids watching this, make sure your parents keep hold of the corks, because you can then put those into your water bottles and recycle them into looking like old medicine bottles, which is really fun. So yeah, lots of upcycling opportunities there for sure. And there's some interesting water bottles around, actually. Not that I encourage you to buy bottled water, but you know, if needs must and you have one spare, there's lots of ways to recycle them. So what you want to then do is, through the use of the one that I prepared earlier, you want to find like a silver or gold pen, or silver or gold paint. Like, you could obviously at this point you can use some like acrylic paint or poster paint, anything that's going to have a contrasting color to what you've used. So it needs to help make the lettering stand out. I've already used silver on this, so I'm going to put a bit of gold on to make it kind of look antique-y. And then you're just going to go over where you've put the hot glue, and it will just make it kind of stand out. I really like using like a Sharpie, just because it just makes it so much easier. Because I'm not actually that great with paint. I've not got a very steady hand, in all honesty. I'm trying to practice. But having a pen just means that you can just kind of go around the outline, and And even if you go over the edge a little bit with this, it's just nice because it kind of adds to it looking all old-fashioned like that. So there you go. So I will post a photo up when my other bottle is dry, because I'm going to end up with a collection of these now. I'm going to have my own apothecary. And yeah, let's give you another shot. It dries so quick as well, the chalk paint. So yeah, this one might need another layer, but it's looking really good. And when it's dry, you kind of it looks different because it needs to kind of be matte finish. I would say I wouldn't recommend doing anything that was going to be glossy. It just won't really be the same. So there we go. There's my lovely Apothecary Bottles activity. I look forward to doing that with you in person one day. You can come and bring me your old medicine bottles and vitamin bottles, and we can make some apothecary jars and get messy together. That'd be really fun. I'm really looking forward to being able to run community workshops again and be back with everyone. My dream is to actually run them from the space that's part of St Bartholomew's. Maybe one day, we'll see. Hey, yeah, so it's all very exciting, and I look, oh, we've got a little sneak of Mr. Tibbs, of course. So yeah, I look forward to catching up with you. We'll be back online live tomorrow for Future Chatham and Creatabot at 12 p.m, and we really look forward to seeing you then. Thank you again to Historic England for funding this wonderful project. We're really enjoying hearing everybody's stories. If you've got stories you would like to contribute, please message me or Georgia at Future Chatham, and you can also email us at stpartsproject@gmail.com. And we do also have a postal address which you can find on Future Chatham should you need it, or if you know somebody that would like to write to us about their account. So thank you very much. Have a lovely evening, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye bye.